Good day, everyone. Before we will start our discussion for today, a moment of silence for our prayer. Amen. Okay, welcome grade 3 to our English class. Now, before we will start, we will have attendance first. And also class, can you open your cameras for our attendance? Okay, thank you. You can now turn off your camera to save your data. Now we have class agreement class. For our class agreement, first, be on time. Don't be late, class. Second, please turn off your microphone and you are allowed to turn on if you have questions or clarification and if you have called. And if you are called to answer. And lastly, be participative. Now, moving on to our review. Who among you here can recall what was our lesson yesterday? Okay, our lesson we talk about verb tense. Okay, verb and adjectives. Now, we have a new lesson. Our new lesson is literary elements. But first, we will read our objectives. The objectives. At the end of the lesson, students are expected to describe literary elements of text, identify the characters and events in the story, and write the summary of the story that will include characters, settings, conflict, and resolution. Now, but before that, we have a motivation first. We will guess the picture. Okay. Jane, guess the first picture. What is the first picture? Okay. Forest. It is forest. How about the second picture? Okay, the second picture is castle. So, ano yung na-observe ninyo sa dalawang picture na yan? What have you observed? Okay, the place or the setting. Now, we will learn literary elements. Can you read, please, the literary elements? Okay, thank you. Okay, a literary elements class, it refers to components of a literary work. Character, setting, plot, theme, frame, exposition, ending, denouement, motive, titling, narrative point of view. These are technical terms for the what of a work. Now, what is literary elements? Literary elements class are things that every single story needs to have in order to exist. They are the architectural foundation. Now, we have 5 elements to discuss in literary elements in text. Now, the characters. The most fundamental of the literary element is the root of all storytelling is character. Now, when we think of our characters as people with wants and desires, we can better understand them and create better stories about them. Your short fiction will probably focus on only a few characters so you can really get to know them. So you should try to get to the heart of what your protagonist wants. So in characters, we have protagonist and antagonist. Okay, the author should introduce the characters in the story with enough information that the reader can visualize each person. This is achieved by providing detailed descriptions of a character's physical attributes and personality traits. So, in characters, kinakailangan na i-introduce mo yung mga characters sa story na kailangan yung information mo ay bawat isa sa kanila ay may bigay mo yung information. Kailangan detailed yung information mo sa bawat character ng story. Next is setting. What is setting? It is where, when, and to some degree how your story takes place. It is also your character's relationship with the world around them. Now in setting class, it also gives your story texture and depth, making the place and time real for the reader through carefully shared details. You can also really play with form in the setting by creating. An author should describe the environment or surrounding of the story in such detail that the reader feels that he or she can picture the scene, di ba? Yung guess the picture natin kanina. Makikita natin yung setting na nandun sa forest, nandun sa castle. Yun yung kay Cinderella na story. Doon yung naganap yung setting nila. So, unusual settings class such as fantasy world can be interesting sa mga reader. But everyday settings can help reader to better visualize the story and feel connected the plot. Kinakailangan na yung setting mo ay like yung interesting upang makatch mo yung attention ng iyong reader, yung mga mambabasa. Next is plot. Plot is the actual story around which the entire book is based. Okay, a plot class should have very clear beginning. Kailangan yung beginning ng story mo ay clear sa mga mambabasa. The middle and with all necessary descriptions and suspense called exposition, so that the reader can make sense of the action and follow along from the start to finish. Now, next is every story has a conflict to solve. Okay, what is this? It is a conflict. Ito na yung problema. Kung ano yung problema sa story. Dito na yung nagaganap. Ang conflict is the plot is centered on this conflict and the ways in which the characters attempt to resolve the problem. When the story's action becomes most exciting right before the resolution, it is called the climax. For example, si Kat often resolves a conflict by finding a compromise for two fighting characters or helping fix any mistakes she made while switch into someone else. So it is important, class, na that the resolution fit the rest of the short in tone and creativity and solve all parts of the conflict. Next is the resolution. It is the solution to the problem is the way the action is resolved. Dito na magaganap yung masolba na yung problema sa story. Ito yung resolution. The resolution of the story is the conclusion of a story's plot. Also known as the denouement, the resolution class is a literary term for the final plot points that occur after a story's climax and falling action. So, resolution, it is the end. It is the time to resolve the problem in the story. Again, class, what are those 5 elements we have characters, climax, setting, plot, and also the last is resolution. Now we have an activity. Our activity is, I have here a video of Cinderella story, short video. And after that, we will identify the elements in the story that you have seen. Okay, this is the story, the short story of Cinderella.
Cinderella. Long ago, there lived a sweet girl named Ella. She lived with her mean stepmother and her 2 proud stepsisters. They made her do all the housework. She was always covered in dust, and so she was called Cinderella. One day, the prince invited all the girls in the kingdom for a ball in the castle. Everyone, including the 2 stepsisters, was very excited. Cinderella, too, wanted to go to the ball, but her sisters asked her to stay at home and work. Cinderella was so disappointed that she began to cry. Suddenly, she saw a shimmering light in the room. A woman with a kind smile stood in front of her. She was Cinderella's fairy godmother. She wanted to help Cinderella go to the ball. With a wave of her hand, she created a grand carriage and made Cinderella look like a princess. But Fairy Godmother warned her to be home before 12 o'clock, for then the spell will be broken. Cinderella was the prettiest girl at the ball. Her stepsisters didn't even recognize her. All the other girls were very jealous because the prince danced with her the whole night. However, the moment the clock struck 12, she remembered the fairy godmother's words and ran away. In her hurry, she left one glass slipper on the castle steps. The prince had fallen in love with her and wanted to find her and marry her. He asked his men to go to every house in the land and find the girl whose foot fits into the glass slipper. The king's men reached Cinderella's house. The 2 stepsisters tried hard to get their big feet to fit into the slippers, but in vain. Finally, when Cinderella tried the slipper, her foot fit perfectly into the glass slipper. The prince and Cinderella were soon married in a grand ceremony. The wicked stepsisters never bothered her again.
Okay, natapos na ninyong tingnan ang video. Ngayon ay magtatawa ako ng pangalan. Sagutan ninyo ang aking mga tanong. Kay Joshua, can you share the plot summary of the story? Okay, very good. The plot summary of the story is good triumphs over evil. Now the setting. Where is the story take place? Okay, very good. Stepmother's house and garden, and also the prince's place. Now, who are the characters in the story? Very good. Sina Cinderella, the stepmother, the stepsisters, and also fairy godmother and prince. So, merong 5 character na present sa story. Is the beginning, the exposition. Okay, the exposition is Cinderella's stepmother and stepsisters treat her like a slave, and she is very happy. So, yun ang beginning ng story. Well, in the middle, so ito yung climax. Yung intense na pangyayari. The fairy godmother sends Cinderella to the ball, but she must be back before midnight at the magic runs out then. So, yun yung climax ng story. How about the resolution or the end or conclusion ng story? Okay, yung the glass slipper fits Cinderella and she marries the prince. And they live happily ever after. So, ano yung resolution doon is, they live happily ever after. So, nagets nyo ba? Nakuha nyo yung how to plotting the story. Okay, very good. I hope na you understand the characters, the plot, the setting, the climax, the resolution in the story. Now I have questions. Now I have a question to you, Miss Grace. What is the importance of plotting the story? Okay, very good. Okay, plotting the story is very important because the plot is what makes the story a story. Nakuha nyo? Yung plot is what makes a story a story. It gives the story character development, suspense, energy, and emotional release, also as a catharsis. Now, the second question is, what is short story? Okay, very good. A short story class is a story with a fully developed theme but significantly shorter and less elaborate than a novel. So, pinaikli na siya, pero na-elaborate pa rin yung story. Okay, that's all class. So, I hope na may natutunan kayo about the elements of the literary elements of the text. Now, we will go on to our evaluation. I have here 5 questions to evaluate your knowledge na if meron ba kayong natutunan sa ating discussion. I will give you 5 minutes to answer these questions. Okay, if you are done, kindly picture it and send it to my messenger account. Now, assignment. In our assignment class, you will read the short story of The Last Leaf by Henry. You can search it. Meron ito sa Google, The Last Leaf by Henry. In a one whole sheet of paper, write the summary of the story that include characters, setting, conflict, and resolution. Kagaya nung ginawa natin kanina, kagaya nung activity natin kanina. You will summarize that story that includes the characters, setting, conflict, and resolution. So, are we clear, class? Are we clear? Okay, I hope so that it is clear to you. Okay, that's all for today, class. I will end this. Thank you and God bless everyone.